Hello and welcome. This is episode 13 of Solo Factory. I'm Graham Banks from the Should I Play This Game podcast. This is the first episode of Solo Factory for 2023. So it's not going to be a particularly build heavy episode. It's going to be a bit of a review of what I did in the 12 episodes that I put out last year. They were put out over the last sort of 6 months of the year. Plus a bit of a planning video for what I'm going to try and achieve in the first couple of videos this year. The goal will be to try and put out at least 2 videos a month. Base would hopefully just be 1, but that's going to come down to work scheduling, that kind of stuff, as to whether I can achieve that. But that is the goal. So yeah, that's this episode is going to be primarily about. So let's actually jump back to the main factory. Let's review exactly what our factory looks like, because it's been about a month since I did episode 12. So let's go back to just remind ourselves exactly what we've got in this factory and what its current state is. So we've got an open air hub central storage area that needs to be redone. We need to figure out what we're going to do about that. There is some significant screen tearing happening here, which is intriguing. We've got our central factory area here. So we've got our 3 districts, that's interesting, the hub compass has gone from the top. Oh, weird. Okay. I'm pretty sure this is meant to be kind of west. That's really odd. Where's that gone? Good. Alright. Pretty sure this is meant to be the west. Because I've got a teleporter just there that I'm pretty sure is called Main Factory West. So yeah, this would be west. Pretty sure that would make that kind of a south and that north, or have I got that arse about? I'm not sure. Anyway, that's really odd. I'm pretty sure there should be a compass at the top of the screen, underneath the time bits at the top, which I'm really intrigued by. I'll look into that later. So let's have a quick look. So we've got a series of production factories. Some of them are self-contained. For example, we've got an iron plate one back here, which is all completely self-contained, because if I just hover off the back of this area, we've got a couple of miners extracting the iron ore. They go straight up into here, into the set of constructors that are then making the iron plates. And we get to the very top of this structure, which is 6 stories high, 6 floors high. We then have got a main output line that goes down to the logistics level, and we've got a awesome sink, which is sinking basically everything else, because we've got full capacity of our containers here. We've got 57,600 in storage. Got an amount on the outbound queue which is not going anywhere. It's not being used for anything else downstream from this. The rest of it goes into the awesome sink, which means I've probably got an absolute quite a few tickets. What have we got? 472 tickets. They've added this into update 7, which you can now sort of feed it animal and plant stuff, I believe, and earn an alternative way to earn credits that go towards tickets or coupon thingies. So that's a self-contained one. A lot of them are like that. Some also have items coming in from other parts of the factory. For example, where is the supercomputer one? Where's the supercomputer one? Supercomputer's over this way. I think is this back one here. Yeah, so that's got 4 inputs. None of them are made locally. They're all coming in from different parts of the factory. Oops, and I didn't have any power then to fly it. So get back up to logistics level. Sure there's a pole there. So this would be them there. So we've got computers coming in, we've got high-speed connectors, plastic, and what appears to be AL limiters. So all those 4 items are coming from different parts of the factory. In fact, that's not even been made anywhere near here. That has been made way over. If I put on, turn that off for a second, and we'll turn on train stations. Train stations on the map. You can see we've got Spire Coast Plastic. That's been made there. We've also got another one here, which is sort of an excess plastic of that production, and that comes to here. That then gets shipped down to belts. Yeah, comes into here. It's a rubber plus plastic, and then from there, it's big, massive conveyor belts bring it into the main factory here. So some factories, some factory production towers are self-contained, some others aren't. Some require drone ports to bring in their materials. For example, there's one back there actually, where I just was. Let me just come out of here. Oh dear. There is one. There's a biggish one in here, which is this double one here. So this is making electromagnetic field generators, if I recall. Pretty sure that's what that's making. Pretty sure that's what that's called. Yeah, magnetic field generator. It requires versatile frameworks, electromagnetic control rods and batteries. Versatile frameworks are being made just there, I believe, if I recall my factory layout. Been a while since I've been in this, so I've sort of reminded myself where stuff is. I'm pretty sure if I go over here, there is... No, it's not been made there, it's been made... Oh, where is being made? Ah, there. Versatile frameworks been made there. Going into here. Batteries and electromagnetic control rods have been made in another part of the factory, and they are drone ported, transported in by drone ports, and they go out from here. But each one of these production towers has essentially the same endpoint. You've got production going into a storage, into a set of containers. Some of these will then go out to an outbound, out to further production lines down the track if they're needed. If there's too much to go into either one of those sources, either storage or outbound, it then goes into an awesome sink. And pretty much, so there's another one there that's making computers. That's actually just storage bringing in computers. It's not the same sort of setup. And this is where the drone ports come in. So we've got some pretty big towers here. The tallest one, I think, is the one making the reinforced plates, which is this one here. Because that's all pretty much self-contained as well. It all starts at a bunch of iron ore down the very bottom and then goes through various production levels, making screws and iron plates, and then combines them together. Let's just go to the top here. I think this is a 10-story structure, if I recall. 9-story structure. So this is 9 stories high. So this is just the final storage. I have written on each one, I've got stored in each one of these where the total input, so 60 minutes being production, at 100 if it's all running efficiently, and 18 a minute are being used to make modular frames, 8 a minute are being used to make smart plating, and 6.5 a minute are being used to make crystal oscillators, for a total of 32.5. Therefore, that minus that gives us what the excess is, and that's probably, based on this here, it's been just going straight into the awesome sink. If it overflows, so this basically where this works is, this is the output from the factory, from the below factory floors. It comes into here, that's a smart splitter. If that's backed up through to here, which goes out to the main output, it then goes right. Then goes into another smart splitter, which primarily is designed to go left into the storage of containers. If that's backed up, it then goes right into the awesome sink. So nothing is wasted, basically. Well, technically it's wasted because it goes in there and it's not getting used for anything, but it is earning me some sort of a currency of some sort. Okay. Go back to the roof. So this is the highest one in this area. Other highest ones, but this is the highest. Okay, so yeah, so we've got that set up here. We've got a series of these production towers. So long-term goal was, or this year's goal, I'm not too sure when I'll get to it, will be that central construction building setup out there with all those storage containers, it's going to be made more centrally. It's going to be made into a big building. What I haven't got on top of, what I haven't got built at the moment is the space elevator. The reason why this isn't built is because it's not needed at the moment. Because at the point in the game at the moment, I've done all of the production required to feed into the space elevator. Therefore, I don't have it built. In essence, I will get rid of that tree at some point. That's part of their Fixmas. Would have seen that in the end of in the last video, with the very soon the Christmas stuff dropping from the sky. So the idea is to basically all this will go for the most part, and then in the middle was going to be a big storage unit, and it'll take everything will feed into it. So all of these things will feed into it if they don't already come out of be fed out of it somehow. They'll feed into the central storage unit, and then we'll start doing overflows for everything and stuff like that. Have local storage in each tower, but then also a central storage. And there'll be separate runs from each of those areas, hopefully. And as I said, if that backs up, then it'll start to awesome sink it. So it shouldn't be wasted either. But it'll also mean that if I go to my central factory, central storage hub, whatever that looks like in the future, it will always be fully stocked of everything I need. There are some things that you don't need to go into that central storage unit. For example, those field generators, we're looking at those field generators we're looking at before. They're not used for anything. They were just for space elevator part. They may get used may get used in future builds, but at the moment they're not a downstream material requirement. So they will just be left in those particular towers. But most of these are used to make something, or are used in construction. So for example, supercomputers are used to make feed into Mark III miners, if I recall. This is where I'm starting to have to Mark III miner, production, Mark III miner. You can see at the bottom we've got, the middle item is 5 supercomputers. And 10 fused modular frames is the one to the right of that. So we've got supercomputers, fused modular frames, turbo motors and pipes. All of these have been manufactured. There's supercomputers, there's fused modular frames. Turbo motors are actually down here, right there, and pipes are over there. So the idea is to have everything always fully stocked in these containers. Let's just quickly go and check. Power's looking good. Let's go. We're already just there. Let's go to. Need to renumber these a bit better so I can know where I'm going. Where is it? Oh, I forgot the name of it. There it is, that one. So this is where I'm making aluminium. What am I making here again? What am I making? Is it aluminium ingots? Yes. Yes, aluminium ingots, because they then get belted all the way down to the main factory. So they go through this set of belts under there, all the way through to there, all the way through the main front of the nuclear power setup. Then they get belted, and you can see the belt run is just through there. So they're on that top level of that. We'll go to where they all meet in a bit. So this is making, it's making it's making aluminium ingots that get used into various couple of some bits and pieces down there. And then here I think I'm making plastic here. No, I'm making fuel. Plastic, there we go. Sorry. So this is making plastic. So we've got, I think there's 4 of them, maybe 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, yeah, so 5 making plastic at 30 each, so 150 each combined. all of this output is heavy oil residue is going into the single more refinery that spits out 50 cubic meters of fuel, which is then feeding these 3 generators, which is making me just a little bit of extra power to not wasting that fuel, or that heavy oil residue, which I could sink if I needed to, but you have to go through packages and stuff like that, and that becomes a bit of a nightmare. So yeah, that's what's making here. What else? Let's go look at the plastic setup. So we are basically here. Main factory is sort of down in this section. We're now going to jump up to the Spire coast and look at the plastic setup. So that is where have I done that? Plastics. I need to renumber that. But before I go any further, let's renumber this one. So this is one 04. 04. Save. Right. And now we'll go to plastics. And this is just making plastic and nothing else. So, waiting for it to kick in with the. There it goes. So we've got a whole bunch of refineries, absolute bucketload. I think it's like a dozen here, if I recall. 7 on that end, that side, and 5 on the other. That are ultimately making. Might even more of that. I don't know. There's 7 setups. Maybe there's 12 setups. So we've got. What have we got here? I have to remind myself what the setup is. So we've got. Okay, that's making rubber and heavy oil residue. We've got 3 of those. Okay, that's making 3 making rubber and heavy oil residue. Autosave is going to kick in a few seconds. The left hand, that one there is taking the heavy oil residue from the first 3 and turning it into fuel, which must feed into the second set of 2 refineries, which I think are then making an alternative recipe for plastic which requires rubber and the fuel, if I recall. Is that right? Rubber and fuel, yeah, and it's recycled plastic, and that making 60 a minute or 12 every time it makes one. And then that spits out. So that's making 60 a minute. That's also making 60 minutes. So we've got, oh wow, way more than I thought. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 down that side. And 2, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So there's 22 of them. Wow. 22 times 60 then is making 1320 a minute combined. Why do I need so much? So 600, 480 and 360, so they're pretty much on track. They go into this thing, which is all going via train. Oh! Red lights. What have they had red lights on for? Some made a change. I think they've normally just been white lights. Maybe they've got red for the rear ones? Maybe, I don't know. So what have we got here? This is the plastic and rubber. So each one of these has got a bunch of output excess rubber. That comes into this storage. That then goes to along that train set up to the where we were with the aluminium ingots. So all this plastic that's in these 3 train depot freight containers. Let's rename this one to 05. Save. That is going to the desert drone port, which is the closest thing I've got. So that plastic thing. I'll wait for the graphics to kick in. Boom, is coming into here. So there's our input there of the 3 there. Plastic, plastic, plastic. We've got too much of it in essence. That goes up through this series of floors. Oh, this is an ugly building. I've made this really ugly. How do I get into here? I've got to go on the other side of it. So this is all making plastic, which I think is actually ultimately making computers, if I recall. So there's some of the plastic coming in there, is that it? No, that's all copper ingots using to make copper sheets. We've got copper coming in through here. There are still screws from iron ingots. What's that? More screws. We've got screws being made there. We've got wire being made there. So making cable. I'm assuming that's all needed for computers. Computers, that's what this is making, is computers. Okay, so it needs cable, plastic, screw, and circuit board. Now, circuit board's all made here. So it needs its own set of plastic, plus the plastics used to make these circuit boards. That's 75 each. That's all this set up. And we've got 3 factories, 3 manufacturers breaking computers. Okay. Things are starting to come back to me now. Oop. So this little setup here is all to do with plastic empty canisters, if I recall. Yeah, this is just an empty canister setup. Which I thought was made from plastic as well. What's that made from? Oh, making plastic containers. Iron plate. And copper sheet. Oh, okay, so iron plate and copper sheet, does it? Coated iron canister, which is still the same empty canister. Okay. Right, so that's making a bunch of canisters. I must use that somewhere else. I think that's in the swamp area. We'll go to the swamp factory in a moment. Alright, what else are we making here? We're making computers there. What else have we got making here? Oh, I'm reminding myself what I've got built here. So, what have we got here? We've got a whole bunch of drone ports. What's making that? That's taking computers back to the main factory. This brings batteries in to power all these drone ports. We've got heavy modular frames, which I believe are made in this factory. Just double check that by going into here and up through. Yeah, that's making heavy modular frames. Yep, so that should be making 12 a minute. I think is the target. There we go. Look at that. Yeah, that was that was a big factory I made. That was the first big factory I made in here. And then to the right that's the electromagnetic control rods, which I think are flown out of this port. Yep, they're used for the generators. There's another one here taking to the main factory, used in that magnetic control, not magnetic control, the field generators we saw. That's used for nuclear generation. Sorry, this one goes to nuclear gens. This one goes to the main factory for the magnetic field generator, I think that first factory we looked at. And then these 3 are taking steel beam, or encased industrial beams, iron plates, and steel beams in the last one, from that factory to the nuclear gen setup, which is what when we sort of started. So we'll get back to that, where that's all coming in. That's all been built here. So then what's left to look at would be the last one to go back to would be the swamp. So we're now here in the desert area. We're now going to go on a teleporter to basically this area here, which is known as the Spire Coast. So we'll call that 06. Save. And that is closest to that, I think, is going to be. Oh, I've got to go there. Where is it? There's a battery drone. Oh, there it is. 03 for batteries. So this is a battery factory. So this is just, as it plays name implies, just making batteries. Let's go into the roof here. So just so you know, we are down in here now, Spire Coast, in this area here. Well, swamp, I should say. And we've got a bunch of things being made here. So here, underneath, this is a battery setup. So if I go over to this building, just got the power. That's all making batteries through that production. Then this sort of setup here is just so that the drone ports can take that, because that take batteries all over the map. So if I actually go into the map and turn on my drones and the drone ports, you can see we've got quite a few drones around the place. Let's turn off the train stations. the trains. So we've got drones taking stuff everywhere. So we've got drones taking batteries from here to all the other places that need drone ports. We've got a drone port here which is bringing those empty canisters. It's just about to take off. Because that's going to those 4 packages, which is basically using those packages of packaging water to be sunk, which is an output of this production tower, this production factory, which is making... What's it making? It's making aluminium ingots, which are there, which are going to where? Where's that going? Nowhere, apparently. That's not going anywhere. Okay. We've got heat sinks being made here. These are used by the nuclear gen setup. So they're coming to there. And then we've also got... okay, we've got just drone aluminium alclad sheeting going off to the main factory, which is used to make heat sinks in the main factory, is then used for something else in the main factory. So that's what's been made in this tower, this building. And yeah, as I said, that's just making batteries, that whole setup. What else we got? That little building over there is used to make packaged sulfuric acid, which is needed by... What's that needed by? That's needed by the battery setup over here. They come in there, I think. Into those there, I think, if I recall. Going to those other manufacturers. Or those blenders, I should say. And that's just belted along through these sort of raised belts. We did have a train station here, which is now essentially decommissioned, that was bringing coal and I think copper. But I found it was a bit easier to bring in copper and coal from way through over there, so that's where that's coming from. That's what that's about. We've also got a sulfur output just there, and that's actually going to the nuclear gen factory, which takes off from that drone port. And I've actually got batteries coming out of here, going through a big long conveyor belt process, which take the batteries to that port. Not those ones. They are they're the ones that take uranium, raw uranium, to the nuclear generator factory. I may change that because that's a bit silly what I've got there. That's a bunch of storage of concrete I had a bunch of concrete being made had a big massive factory under here, if you might recall from previous episodes. That's all now gone. I may actually, what I may end up doing, just to make this a bit more efficient, a bit less silly, in essence, I might move those drone ports down to where the actual uranium comes out, which is actually down through there. That's where the uranium's actually coming from. Goes up all those series of lifters and stuff into here, and then gets drone port near one landing. Takes drone ports to the main factory, or the generator factory. And that one there, as I said, that's taking the uranium, the sulfur from there to the nuclear factory. So I might just move that closer to that, and just have a really short drone port go from here to there, then have another one go from here to there, and get rid of the conveyor belt run, because it is a little bit silly having this big conveyor belt run just sort of in the middle of the air. So I might think that might be something to think about for a future episode. That'll mean I need to probably extend this, because in here we've just got, there are 6 drone ports in here, all currently have a destination. So we've got, this one's taking batteries to the desert area, which we just were in. This one's taking deserts to the main factory to use that same thing, that field generator. This one's taking batteries to the desert's nuclear drones port. Not sure what that one is. Not sure what that one is. Where that's taking batteries to. That one's taking batteries to the pipes beams. We're going to go to that production in a second. This is taking batteries to roughly where this goes. There's 2 production towers in that area, which is for using gas filters. And this is so that's taking the battery to the canister port, which is on the other side. So what's this one doing? Desert Nuclear Gen Drone. Oh, is that the one that's taking batteries to the drone port in the desert? No, that's that one. What the hell's that one going to? Desert Nuclear Gens Drone. In batteries, nuclear gens, drones. In, so it's it's got my naming conventions out, what it takes, and kind of where it's going, but that name is not making any sense to me. The reason I've got incoming and outcoming, and this is because it takes batteries to its end location, and any batteries that aren't used there, because there's an overflow set up at each of these drone ports, it'll then overflow back into the drone port and then bring them back again. So it's kind of recycling the batteries. That comes into each of these drone ports. All of them are doing it, so we're going to have some are going to have incoming, some have outgoing. They come in to the. So this one here's got 75 batteries already on it. It's coming back in. It's going to take 132, 133 back to where it needs to go, to here. Then these batteries come out of here. So in a second that will come in with have 75 and they'll flow out real quickly. And that goes back into a series of conveyor belts in the next floor level, in the logistics level below, and goes back into storage and then just gets recycled through. So I don't need to actually make. I'm making 240 a minute. Well, that's the target, and I'm making 228. It's a bit under, but you can see here I'm eating 250, but a lot of it's recycling through. And there's an awesome thing here as well for excess batteries, but I don't think it's really doing that much ultimately. So I'm really fascinated as to, I cannot remember. I know where all these ports are. That one's gas filters, we're about to go there in a second. That's canister ports, that's where we just were. That's the pipes and beams, that's in the production tower, that's basically sort of, if you can see it through here. It's somewhere over, that might be it through there. No, that's the main factory. It's somewhere over there, I think. Anyway, there's some stuff over there that's there. We've got main factory that we looked at earlier. There's the drones where we were, all those where those 9 drone ports were. But I don't know what this is used for. So it's going to a port called in batteries, nuclear drones. Ah, I know what that's. I think I know what that's for. Not actually, no, I don't really think. Okay, we'll go there and we'll go back to. Obviously, I'm doing nuclear generation. We'll go there in a bit. We'll go there last. But we're going to go to pipes and beams. So now we are just in this section here. This big water is. There are 2 production towers here. One here is making pipes and beams. I never actually put the walls up on that one. That was one of the earlier factories I did when I restarted doing buildings like this. Behind me is making gas filters. Gas filters are needed for one thing, to make gas the masks I'm wearing. So if I go into my character tab, it's used to make these things. Used to make the iodine infused filters, which protects me as a character from the uranium poisoning stuff, which we'll go when we get around the generators. You'll see what that's about. That's what this factory is designed to make. It's just making gas filters just for that. Because around here is a bunch of resources that are needed for that. We've got a bunch of, I think that's coal all through there. That's an iron ore one, if I recall. We've got a bunch of oil through here. If I come across here, down here, we've got, oops, one too far. There we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, and that's all iron ore, I believe. The coal is used. Coal and iron ore is needed to make these beams and pipes, so we've got them coming in through here. I just never put a roof and a side on that one, so that's one of the goals for the early part of the year. We make that into a proper looking building. So that's pipes and beams, and there's the 3 drone ports for there. So one's bringing the batteries. Batteries come in, they come out of that, go into this, get split into each of the ports. So you've got pipes and beams, pipes out of that one. Where's that going? That's going steel beams for stators, end of line. I need to rename that convention. That's alright. And this one takes beams for versatile framework. So that goes, both of them are going to the main factory in essence. So yeah, so there's a separate drone port in the top of that building to get access to that tower. I probably really should make this just one drone port, but for the time being it's separate. So I won't rename that one. And then let's go to the nuclear gens. So we've got multiple ports in the nuclear gens. We've got a top, the south end of it, one in the north end of it, and a ground on the south end of it. We'll go to the south top, and that's this section. So top of here is all my nuclear waste processing. So underneath, actually we'll start with the input stuff. So here's we've got a whole bunch of inputs. So we've got 4 lots of, first 4 going right to left. The first 4 is all limestone, used by all of these machines here to make a bunch of concrete needed here. Now with the new setup I was just showing you with the drone ports, I've got beams coming in and industrial customer beams and the electromagnetic control rods and stuff. Some of this stuff is going to go soon. That's part we'll talk about that in a moment. So it won't be as need as much limestone in the future, but that's what that is. Next 2 are sulfur, which is needed by some stuff underneath, which we'll get to in a bit. Under here we've got some coal and iron ore. Now that will be able to be removed in a moment because that's being used to make, just in those foundries sitting right there, these are foundries, so through there, that's making steel ingots needed to make beams. They're going to be made elsewhere and brought into here. So those 2 runs will actually go away. Raw iron ore, raw uranium comes in. So we've got 2 belt runs. Just sit here for a second so we can see this autosave kick in. So we've got uranium runs coming in here. They go into underneath. There's another, that drone port I was pointing out earlier in the swamp factory. The swamp factory. That actually comes in at the other end of the generator circuit up here. May not ultimately be needed, so I might be able to get rid of that potentially. We've got raw quartz coming in here. That basically just takes left-hand, right-hand turn and goes through to there. That other factory. The plastic, rubber, and aluminium ingots are coming from that other. If I keep going up a bit higher. We can sort of through this haze there. That's coming from that, which obviously can't fill in all the factories. You can see the you can see the pipes, but you can't see the actual refineries. That's coming from that up, and there's a train station there you can't see either. So all that's raw materials needed for a bunch of stuff under here. But underneath, let's go down. First thing, I'm just going to come over here for a bit. And there's a bunch of batteries here, which I was just used for battery storage. Under there, we've got all the water extractors needed for the nuclear gens that are in here. So let's come into here. So we've got there are 48 generators, nuclear generators in here. 4 rows of 12. And each of them needs a dedicated water input. In update 7, they released just before Christmas, or late end of last year. They changed the water consumption to 240. It was 300, which maxed out a single one of these running at 250. So I've still got it running 250. I'm just letting it basically fill up. So there was an issue before where you would actually end up, if I went to the very end of this row, which is the longest built pipe run of the setup, you get to the very end here, and that would be partially empty, and they would never running efficiently 100%. So going to 240 but leaving the actual requirement at 300 has basically fixed that problem. So they've done a really neat thing for me. You can see the waters coming through there. So what do each of these things need? They need uranium fuel rods, and that's what this setup is making, or help makes. Sulfuric acid comes in there. That's those 2 runs of sulfur I pointed out earlier. We've got that gets fed out of these 3 sets of 4, feed into these row of blenders, which is making encased in uranium cell, has an excess or output of sulfuric acid, that's going to these 3 packages over here, 1 for each row of 3. That's just getting, then making sulfuric acid packaged, and I'm just sinking it. Don't need it, just sink it. So the plastic that I was showing you earlier in that other area is coming in here and making canisters, which have been used by these things. The sulfuric acid production needs water. That's what that's about. So, what have we got? So then those encased uranium cells go up to the top there. I do have a logistics level underneath here, so let's see if I just go into it. I think we can by coming up here. So, actually, I'll go into the top and I'll show you. Just use my hypertube. Now we're on top. So, one of these, that's bringing in heat sinks. That's going to be moved to the other end ultimately. After we regen that area. This is bringing in uranium. That's those 2 drone ports I was showing you earlier. And this is bringing in nuclear rods. So ultimately again, though that one, and maybe even that one, if I need it, all going to be moved to that end. Here we've got the current production of encased industrial beams, which is needed by these 18 manufacturers. These 18 manufacturers need encased industrial beams. They need encased uranium cells. They need electromagnetic control rods to make the uranium fuel rods, which is going to all of those generators below. I'm actually making way more than I need. All those 18 combined, if you do the mass, 18 times 0.8, making 14.4 a minute across all of them if they're running 100%, which I think they probably are. That one running 100%. The ones that has the most struggle to run 100% is the one at the very end of the production line, which is basically this guy here. He's running 100%. So if I look at my little counter, which should be viewable through here, it should be running very close. And read it. Where is it? Oh, there it is there. You can just see it there. It says 15. It can't go to decimal places. What's needed underneath though with the 48 generators? They only need, I think it's they consume 0.2 a minute. If I got that right. 48 times 0.2 should be 9.6. Yes, they need 9.6 rods a minute, uranium fuel rods a minute. I'll be using nearly 15 or nearly 14 and a half. So yeah, they've been sunk. Anything that's not needed is being sunk into this guy. All of those nuclear generators spit out waste. So I've got a manual sort of a nuclear waste generation process or processing set up for each row of each row of generators. That's what this is all about. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Each is 1 for each row below. The waste comes up here, there, there, and there from all 12 generators in each row, and then goes through a series of stuff here. So it gets split into this splitter here, or multiple splitters here. This is making non-fissile uranium, which is needed by that particle accelerator. This is combined with waste silica, which has been made by quartz there. That's going to be retained in the new setup. Iron plates, they're being made locally, but are now going to be brought in by drone port. Water comes from underneath, fed into this guy as nitric acid combined with sulfuric acid, which has been made by there. The drone port's in over there from that swamp. The swamp port I showed you earlier. The thing about moving. And yeah, so silica and uranium waste goes into here, along with other excess waste to make plutonium pellets, which feed into these 2 assemblers, which are combined with concrete. That's still going to be remained locally on this floor, on this building, which is making encased plutonium cells, which are then combined with heat sinks, steel beams, and electromagnetic control rods, and those pellets to make plutonium fuel rods, which are then just being straight up sunk over there. And that's how you get rid of the nuclear waste. That's balanced specifically to do that efficiently. So we're going to bring the rods, the steel beams are going to be made in from the other factory I showed you earlier, from the desert area, and the heat sinks are all going to be flown in up there, and they're going to come down this central conveyor belt run. Currently we've got stuff coming from that end, stuff coming from that end. It's a bit of a mess, so we're going to do it all from that direction. What that'll also allow me to do, if I need to in the future, is build more generators to the left of me, and still probably out of feed most of them. I haven't really planned that further out because I don't need to do it at the moment, because I've got, come to my power pole here and click edit. We're making just over 120,000 megawatts. Each generator below makes 2,500 each. So 48 times 2,500. That's 120,000 base power from just the generators. A little bit excess here. This fluctuating excess is made by those fuel generators that, because they fluctuate in what they get fed into them, they go up and down in terms of their production. So that's what that's about. I'm using 61,000 or 62,000 on average. The maximum, if every single machine was running 100%, it'd be 65,148. So you can see I've got a bunch of excess. Like, what is it? $65,000. So I've got 55,000 excess. So I don't think I'll need to build a new set of generators anytime soon, but it's a bit of future planning to allow me to do that if I need to. Because I'm making 14.4 rods, I don't need to do anything to make more rods. So if we go to 60 generators, another row of 12, I need 12 rods, and I'm still making 14.5. If I went to 72, I think that's when I start to actually dead on 72. So yeah, I can actually go another 24 generators, which if I did that, I would go to 180,000 megawatts. So yeah, so more than enough, and I've got capacity. All I need to then do is build this setup for another 2 times, and because I'm now bringing the stuff in needed for it elsewhere, in theory I should be able to compensate and be able to make that setup. You may have noticed there's another setup of this sort of going in the middle here. That's my manual nuclear waste management setup. Occasionally what happens is something happens and these stop functioning properly and waste starts to build up. Might be that they'll stop the drone port for sulfuric acid isn't bringing the raw sulfur. Therefore those refineries stop producing the sulfuric acid. Therefore this thing stops, and then everything just gums up and stops functioning. So for that reason I've got this setup here, so when that happens I come around manually taking all the uranium waste out of the blenders at the front here and these things, and I manually store it over here in a set of these containers here, and that then feeds all of this setup, and that is producing processing that excess waste. At the moment that hasn't happened for quite a while, so it's all empty and it's doing nothing, so that's fine. That's exactly what it should be doing. So that's for emergency only kind of setups where something's broken and I haven't realised it. Okay, that's the tour. So plans are, so we come to the end of this nearly hour-long video. We're going to, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to redo this area. So let me just jump to the bottom here, and we're going to fly over here. So the first thing we're going to do is we've got to redo this whole area. So let's get up really high. That's about as high as we can go and keep our power. So these foundries, they go because they're making steel ingots. They go because they're making beams from those ingots. They're being droned in now. They go. They'll just be fed out of the drone port straight into this central run, as we pointed out earlier. I'm going to reorientate all of these productions making concrete. I'm still going to make the concrete here because there's a lot being made here. I'm going to reorientate them so they're running essentially the same way these are facing, so the same way these are running. And they'll run out into the middle of the factory, so we'll come one row for, I don't know, is it what I need them for? One row of constructors for the blenders underneath that's making the case plutonium stuff. One will be made to feed into the pellet. You can see the run there for the pellets. So that'll be one set of constructors. And I think that's all I'll need. Is that, and then we'll need one row of constructors. It's making that silica. So what I've got in these series containers here is a bunch of, because I need to better keep this whole setup going clearly, I've got a whole bunch of stuff sitting in storage while I do that rearranging. So we've got, I think these are primarily full, that one's full, that one's full, I think that's nearly, oh that one's full, cool. So, now that's the beams used for, that's the one that's used for, so if we come across here, beams are under there, which are coming along here, and yeah, that's used by those manufacturers. The excess goes through there and then goes down to the case industrial beams at the other end. So we need 10.8 per minute here, so you times 4, you're looking at, I think it's 44.2 or something like that. So we'll stop, we'll basically, essentially what we'll end up doing is rather than having that splitter there, we'll just stop that. It'll just go right and go that'll all. Because the encased industrial beams are going to be brought in by the drone port, so they'll have to then be shipped, because the encased industrial beams go into those set of manufacturers. So I have to dedicate a run for that to make that go, and then that'll hook from this direction and go right into that setup. That also, yeah, everything else for that is actually at that end. It's the so yeah. Then we'll bring in more drone ports to bring in the rods and the heat sinks, and then we'll deal with them. So yeah, I've just got a bit of stuff in storage to allow me to do that, to do those changes, and not have this stuff stop functioning. Same thing here. We've got some silica here that's being stored up. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3. 3 of them at 9,900. Yeah. 9,600 times 3. It's got 28,000, just under 29,000. If I go into my efficiency checker mod, which is really neat, we can do that, and we can say that it's needing 240 a minute, and I'm putting out 281, which is what's been made. So if I click on here, you can see we're making 281 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it 5 or 6? 1, 2, 5 of these, making 56.25 each. So 5 times 56.25, 281.25 matches what we're seeing with that number. But you can see we're needing 240 a minute. So if we now go 28,800 divided by 240, we've got just under 2 hours worth of this in storage. Because I need to stop making these to be able to move them around. So we're going to move that pretty quickly. Otherwise, the setup required for this goes into these second row blenders here. Each one needs 60 a minute, I believe. Yeah. So if that stops, this stops, nuclear waste starts to build up, we've got a problem. So you have to move them pretty quickly and get them flowing again before we run out of that. Steel beams, as I said, steel beams been made there. We're making 240 a minute there. Only needs 235.2. That's needed by the encased industrial beams and the manufacturers needed for the pellet, for the plutonium rods. So that gets split twice. So that shouldn't be too bad because I'll bring the concussion adjusted beams in. We'll get them that belt run done first, and then that shouldn't be too bad. But again, if we check that again, wait a second. That's not going to let me do that. So again, we've got roughly the same number. It's 9,600 in each of these. Yep. So 28,000. What was it? 235 or so. So that gives me a bit more. That gives me a bit over an hour, over 2 hours to sort out, to get the beams coming in and the encasing adjusted beam stuff. That's probably going to be the simplest to do because I've already got them sitting in a bunch of storage units over here. One's there, the other one's there. I've got them both full, I suspect. Yep. Well, that one's not quite. Basically, go left from here, join this, come into this central run, and straight down the gut of it, and we'll go right as we need to. As we need to. So that's going to be probably do that first, because that means I can get rid of all of this setup and all of that setup. That may allow me to rebuild this stuff. So we've got 1, 2, 3 sets of concrete set up here. Yeah. We'll talk about that at the beginning of the next video, where I'll talk about this actually doing all this stuff in the next video. So that'll be enough for now. As I said, this is nearly an hour. Oh, I just want to look at this. Change this. Oh, they have. Okay, so you've now got white. These are just white at both ends. Now you've got red for the rear of it, and white at the front. That's cool. I don't know when they made that change. That's cool. Yeah, so this will be enough for now. That's basically where we're at. So redo this. Think about that middle factory. Redo the middle factory. Put some buildings up. Oh, I didn't show you one other building. Show you one other building. Where's my little? Come back down here. One other building I didn't show you. You might have spotted. Go back to home. And we'll just hopefully get close to it. We can see it before we start battery. That there is 5 levels of batteries. So when I was doing the rebuilding of the because I had a whole bunch of not nuclear generators, I had coal generators that was powering the factory. I then migrated or sort of moved across to nuclear generation. As a result of doing that, I needed to build up a bunch of capacity batteries so the main factory kept on running while I was changing over the main power source. That's what this is. So each level, each floor is a 22 by 22 foundation floor, if I recall from when I did it. I did this quite a while ago now. Each floor has 400 batteries on it. And this took a long time because you've got to connect each battery to each other in a sequence. So you can see here we're coming in. It comes out of this, into here, into this switch. So I can actually switch it off. I can actually switch this battery off. So if I actually do that, if I switch it off, you can see on there it's down 100. It's now draining the batteries. And now it's completely drained. So now we've got no batteries on this side. But it is actually got batteries capacity in it. So the factory's still running. But this is just the battery backup. So if at any point in time I did have a problem with the nuclear generation and it actually stopped, all of these batteries kick in. So this has got as I said, each floor is basically 40. I think each level is it's a lot of battery storage. So 400 batteries. Each floor is connected to So if I jump right along here, just get that out of the view so we can get more view. Coming to the next level, it's basically the same. Another 400 batteries. And then repeat that 5 times. So I've actually got 2,000. Pretty sure it's 2,000. Does that math work? 5 times 400. Yeah, 2,000 batteries sitting here. All of them are fully charged. So if I actually go up to, I don't actually have one here, I have to go down to our main factory, main hub area. I go back to this hub area. I've got a little power checker mod. A lot of mods I'm using in this game, by the way, to make things just a bit easier. So I run through here, go through that little monster, and then go into this guy, this power checker. So you can see we've got 200,000 megawatt hours of battery charge. So if the factory was to stop, we would still be able to, the factory would still run for nearly 4 hours before it ran out of batteries. You can see we've got running through 61 megawatts there. Megawatt hours it would stop. I think it would last about 3 to 4 hours before the whole factory just completely seized up. Obviously that's fluctuating based on how much consumption is happening, but that's essentially what it's designed to cover that scenario. Hasn't happened for a long time because the nuclear generators are pretty solid. So yeah, I've got nearly 2,500 batteries. I've got the 2,000 there, the 300 near the generators. I'll eventually get rid of the ones near the generators, and I may even build another level over here just to make it so it's another level. I've got capacity, I just keep building up, so that's not an issue. It takes a lot of resources to build it though. You need each power generator, each battery, which is one of these, power storage, is 100 wire and 10 modular frames, so you need 40,000 wire to do it. You need 400 times 100, and I think you need, I think it's 10,000, maybe it's 40,000, 4,000, I can't remember what is it, it must be 4,000 modular frames, 40,000 wire, and stators, and the stators, it's 2,000 stators if I recall. Yeah, 2,000 stators. So you've got to have a lot of capacity to do it. Now I probably could do that relatively comfortably because, where's my wire? My wire's over here. I've got 12,000 sitting in there, but I have wire being made in one of those two towers. So it would be enough, I suspect I could do it comfortably. I think the wire's this next one here, this wire's here. So if we come to the top of this structure, we'll see what I've got stored. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 7. Yeah, seven containers there. They each stacked to 500, so there's 24,000 in each one of them. So comfortably, I've got 168,000 wire sitting in that one. So yeah, comfortably I could obviously get the 40,000 I need to do another level. I could probably even do another 2 levels comfortably. So that's something you may look at doing as well in the future. But yeah, the other part is we've got to redo this second section, which means I've got to do a bunch of work underneath to get all logistics right for that. So that's probably the biggest sort of why I'm sort of holding off doing it. Because there are some things I need to make elsewhere and still bring in. So yeah, so that's sort of it. So redo the nuclear generation stuff. Think about how to do this area. Put some walls up on that pipe and beam factory that's over there, and that's probably going to be the early part of the year setup. So thanks for watching episode 13 of Solar Factory, first one of 2023. As I said, I'll try and make a couple of months, if not one a month, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.